Yes, and I would like to wish a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everybody joining us from all over the world. Welcome to our workshop on social inclusion about the topic of integrating and inclusion of refugees through sport. Please note that this webinar will be recorded, so whatever you're writing or saying will also be recorded. Before we go any further, I would also like to introduce myself. I'm Denise Robrade, project manager at TAFISA, and I will be moderating the session today. As some have already started, I would kindly like to ask all of you to input your name in the chat and just introduce yourself to give us a better overview of who is joining us today in this workshop. And so I think for now that's already enough housekeeping, and it's time to officially kick off our meeting on our Mission 2030 workshop. And it is my pleasure to officially introduce TAFISA Secretary General Jean-François Laurent, who will give a few words of welcome. Jean-François, over to you.
Thank you very much, Denise, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today for this 11th TAFISA Mission 2030 workshop. I'm very excited about the topic of today. This is a workshop which we are holding in partnership with the organizing committee of the 28th TAFISA World Congress, which will take place in Düsseldorf in 2 weeks, but also with the Sport for Refugees Foundation, whom I would already like to thank for co-hosting this workshop with us. The Mission 2030 theme, which we are tackling today, is social inclusion. And more than that, we are tackling a specific topic, which is about the integration and inclusion of refugees through sport. The Sport for Refugees Coalition, which includes the SCORT Foundation, the Olympic Refugees Foundation, and UNHCR, has been doing an incredible work over the past years to advance the cause of refugees worldwide and how sport can contribute to making a change. And this work is more than needed. Nowadays, 117 million displaced and stateless people need help around the globe. And this is happening in 134 countries, according to UNHCR. So this is a worldwide issue. This is a worldwide topic to be tackled. And it is also an urgent matter since the number of displaced and stateless people is increasing due to conflicts which are rising around the globe. For the last 10 days, we have witnessed a new conflict, a new version of the conflict between Israel and Palestine, and we already have a number of more than 1 million displaced people in less than 10 days. So these numbers are growing, and the climate crisis, which we are also witnessing across the globe, is threatening to increase this number as well, besides conflicts. Sport for All has a role to play. Sport for All has a role to play in inclusion, in relief, in health promotion, in human connections, among others. And this is very much why we are opening this platform today for discussion and initiating this debate that we will continue as well during the TAFISA World Congress between the 1st and the 5th of November, as the Olympic Refugee Foundation will also join us. Today, we will hear about various presentations from various speakers, which I would already like to thank for their contributions. And we will also hear about the joint sport pledge on sport inclusion and protection, which will be presented in a few weeks at the World Refugee Forum. And TAFISA and the Global Sport for All movement can only support this initiative. And I would very much like to encourage all of you listening today to also spread the word and pass the message further. So we will hear about this a little bit later. I look forward to listening to the various speakers and also to the debate and discussions which will ensue with all the participants. Thank you very much once again for joining, and have a good workshop.
Thank you very much, Jean-François, for these nice welcoming words. I would now like to pass the floor to Ms. Kathleen Latimer. Kathleen is a Senior Impact Manager with the Olympic Refugee Foundation. and she has more than 17 years experience in the field of monitoring, evaluation, and learning in the UK as well as internationally. And she is responsible for designing and implementation, so as managing the foundation's measurement and evaluation systems, as well as compiling complex data for learning, adaptation, communication, and advocacy. Kathleen, I would now like to give the floor over to you, and I'm looking very much forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Denise. Thank you, Jean-François. And thank you to TAFISA for inviting me to speak today, and for all of you for joining us here online. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully you can now see those slides. And I'm going to start with a short video that introduces the Olympic Refuge Foundation and what Sport for All means to us.
This is a team like no other, a team that's creating change across the world. Leaders, businesses, coaches, athletes, displaced young people, united by the Olympic Refugee Foundation, and one goal: to rebuild young life through sport. Because when your life is in limbo and you never feel so alone, finding refuge in a team means everything.
Tunasahau kama tuko wa refugee tu, tukicheza tunasikia furaha nyingi, because sasa tuko nje tu.
On this team, we hone our talents. We build skills that last forever. We dream of what we can achieve. We belong.
Çok mutluyum. Burada arkadaşlarımla eğleniyorum.
Powered by the Olympic spirit, everyone can play a part to make sure no young person is left out, so we can feel at home again, thrive again, and shape our own futures. That's why this is a team like no other.
As you can see from that short video, the work of the Olympic Refuge Foundation spans the full spectrum, from elite competition to community participation. The ORF was established by the International Olympic Committee in 2017, following the successful participation of the first refugee Olympic team in Rio in 2016. Through this initiative, the IOC had committed to supporting refugee athletes and their participation, and through the foundation, they extended this ambition to ensure greater access to high-quality, safe, inclusive sport for displaced people around the globe. And this focus wasn't new. It builds on a decades-long history working in partnership with UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. The foundation itself is an independent non-profit, legally and financially independent from the IOC, but IOC President Bach is the chair of our board, and High Commissioner Grandi from UNHCR is our vice chair. Oh, sorry, I have skipped a slide. The ORF holds a mandate to deliver on Recommendation 11 of IOC Agenda 2020+5 to raise awareness of the global refugee crisis and access to sport for people affected by displacement around the globe. Our work contributes to the overall vision of the IOC, which is to build a better world through sport, but as a separate entity, we have our own vision of a society where everyone belongs through sport. A mission to shape a movement that ensures young people affected by displacement thrive through sport, And our goal, or our ambition, is for 1 million young people affected by displacement to access safe sport by 2024. We see one of our key roles as acting as this link between organisations of the sport ecosystem and those in the humanitarian and development sectors. Today, we want to talk specifically about our work in the collective action space alongside UNHCR and the SCORT Foundation as co-conveners of the Sport for Refugees Coalition and the work that we're doing together in preparation for the Global Refugee Forum. Before we go into more detail on that, I'm going to talk briefly about the role of sport in displacement contexts and how sport can be used to support the inclusion and protection of refugees. Sport has always been present in displacement settings. For those affected by conflict, persecution, sport can be so much more than just a leisure activity. It offers an opportunity to be included, to be protected, a chance to heal and to grow. And everyone here today is part of our sport ecosystem. We all share that belief in the power of sport to create positive social change for individuals, for communities, and for society as a whole. But what we know is that in contexts of forced displacement, people too often miss out on experiencing and benefiting from sport due to lack of access, barriers to access, and a lack of understanding and uptake of sport as an important tool as part of a holistic and whole of society response to the global refugee crisis. Through the work that we're doing with our partners, our aim is to maximise the role and contribution of sport in the protection and inclusion of displaced people and to support a shift in the humanitarian response, where sport can often be viewed as a luxury or a nice to have, towards a place where the cross-cutting value of sport and its contribution in areas including health, education, child protection, gender equality, disability inclusion, social cohesion, etc., are fully recognised and harnessed. To the end of 2022, UNHCR data estimates that around 110 million people were forcibly displaced worldwide as a result of persecution, conflict, violence, and human rights violations. This includes refugees, so those displaced outside of their country of origin, asylum seekers, so those awaiting their claim for protection to be processed, internally displaced people, those displaced within the borders of their own country, and others in need of international protection. Of these 110 million, 3/4 are hosted in low and middle income countries, and approximately 70% are hosted in countries neighbouring the ones that they fled. Sad news for us today is that this picture is not getting any better. Data for the end of 2023 will certainly show a worsening situation. For those who have had to flee their homes, often experience protection risks, poorer health and education outcomes, barriers to accessing services, fewer opportunities to access employment and to participate within their own communities. And it's with this framing that the Global Compact on Refugees was developed. So the Global Compact on Refugees is a framework to promote better and more equitable outcomes for refugees through improved international cooperation and responsibility sharing. Global Compact was affirmed by the UN General Assembly in December 2018, and it's a framework for different groups, including governments and international organisations, to ensure that host countries and local communities get the support that they need, that refugees can lead productive lives, access services, and have their rights upheld. Key objectives of the Global Compact, there are 4. Firstly, to support local communities which host refugees to ease pressure on their resources. To improve the independence of refugees so that they can fully participate in their communities and actively contribute as valuable members of society. To expand opportunities for resettlement to other countries, and to support conditions in countries where refugees have come from so that they can return home in safety and in dignity. One of the main mechanisms for progressing the Global Compact on Refugees is the Global Refugee Forum. The GRF is a major ministerial meeting that takes place in Geneva every 4 years, and the first one was in 2019. The forum brings together the international community to demonstrate solidarity with refugees, to share their vision and their ambition on how to share responsibility with regards to protection and support for refugees and displaced people. This is done through the announcement of pledges to improve the lives of refugees and their host communities. And these pledges contribute to achieving the 4 objectives of the GCR previously mentioned. In 2023, the second GRF will be held in Geneva. This forum is being co-hosted by Switzerland, and it's co-convened by the member states of Colombia, France, Jordan, Niger, and Uganda. The forum will build on what went before in 2019 to take stock of what's been achieved and the progress made, identify gaps, and re-energise solidarity with refugees and the communities who host them. The forum will also see the announcement of the joint pledge on sport for inclusion and protection, which is the main reason I've been invited here today to speak with you all. Now, together with our partners, UNHCR and the Sport Foundation, as co-conveners of the Sport for Refugees Coalition, we've been working to create this joint pledge with a reference group who we've brought together. Important to note here that we are not starting from zero. In 2019, the sport community also came together in advance of the first Global Refugee Forum, forming the Sport for Refugees Coalition. It's a broad coalition of 80+ organisations, including national Olympic committees, international and national federations, sports clubs, NGOs, and others. At that time, 3 pledges were presented by IOC President Bach on behalf of the coalition members, and those focused on extending access to sport for refugees and the communities who host them. Since that time, this broad coalition has mobilised in excess of $14 million and reached almost 200,000 people. Looking towards the GRF in 2023, the aim is to build on the foundation that was put in place in 2019 and by these original pledges. We're looking to expand the membership of the coalition, to activate and to leverage the whole of the sport ecosystem to maximise the value of sport in contexts of forced displacement. To this end, the co-conveners of the Sport for Refugees Coalition established a multi-stakeholder reference group to co-create a refreshed joint sport pledge, which will be presented at the forum in December. The members of the reference group are listed here on this slide, and you're going to hear from some of them about their work in the session today. And here is the outcome of the months of work that we've been doing alongside the members of the reference group. Whilst now distilled into a couple of slides, I say this has been months of work building on the learnings from both the Sport for Refugees Coalition and also the Global Refugee Forum and process more broadly. So in summary, the pledge, which has been co-created by the reference group, has 5 component parts, which are set out in this diagram. Promotion of an enabling environment, including policy that delivers access to safe sport. Promoting and providing inclusive, safe sport and play-based initiatives. Promoting and providing opportunities for enhanced skills and pathways. Using targeted communications, evidence and advocacy, and strengthening partnership and coordination efforts. Together with the reference group, we've established that all of these component parts are necessary to really create the change that we would like to see. Cross-cutting within this is the importance that we place on the voice and leadership of displaced people being at the heart of all of this activity. A commitment towards the pledge can take many forms. So it may be technical, it may be financial, in-kind, policy or program related. So there's many different ways in which an organisation can show their support. And importantly, it's not expected that every organisation can work across all the pillars of the pledge. A commitment to the pledge can be in one or more of these areas in line with organisational resources, remit and priorities. This is the detailed pledge wording and will ensure that these slides and the documentation that supports the pledging process is provided to everyone on the call today. To again demonstrate that everyone, no matter the size of the organisation, can get involved, this slide presents some generic examples of the type of activity that could sit in different components of the pledge. So by way of a quick explainer, component 1, enabling environment, this is where we would see activity that's intended to strengthen and broaden the capacity of the existing sports sector to deliver for refugees. So it's about adding a displacement lens to your existing work. Component 2 is about specific projects or programs or initiatives that may sit outside of that business as usual activity. Component 3 is about training, education, and other pathways for refugees themselves, be that in the role as participants, peer leaders, athletes, coaches, officials, administrators, or others. Components 4 and 5 are also very cross-cutting, and we actually hope that any commitment towards the pledge would be able to include these elements around communication, the generation of evidence for organisations to lend their voice to our joint communications and advocacy efforts, and to work in partnership with others in order to deliver. So in summary, in terms of my ask of you all here today, we would love as many of you as possible to join us in making a commitment to support displaced people to belong, to thrive through sport in the coming 4 years. And getting involved is simple. Step 1, developing a commitment. We have developed a guidance note and supporting documentation for any organisation who is keen to make a commitment towards the pledge. And the co-conveners of the Sport for Refugees Coalition, so ourselves at the Olympic Refuge Foundation, our partners at the SCORT Foundation and UNHCR are here. We are ready and willing to support you in the process of developing that commitment. Step 2 is to register the commitment, and we've developed a simple form to help organisations to register commitments which are SMART, so which are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time-bound. Commitments can also be can then be uploaded on the Global Refugee Forum portal, where they would be visible to all of those who have made a commitment across the diversity of pledges that will be made at the forum. Step 3 is reporting on progress. And here I really want to stress that this should not be seen as an additional burden for an organisation. The reporting processes that are in place are light touch. They're focused at output level, so what you are doing or producing as a result of the activity to implement the commitment. And it's not about reporting to us, it really is about reporting with us, and as many organisations as possible lending their voice to our joint communications and advocacy efforts. And that's all from me just now. Very happy to take any questions in the Q&A session, but I will pass over to our expert panel members who can tell you more about their work, how it relates to the pledge and its component parts, and really help bring this to life. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. That was very informing, and I am fully understand supporting what Jean-François has already said, that the sport and Sport for All world should support this pledge for action. So now it's time to go to our round table and to our case studies. And TAFISA is delighted that we are joined today by fantastic speakers who have insight, experience, and knowledge to share on the topic. And it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our first speaker, who is Ms. Georgia Papathanasiou. Georgia is the head of the EU Projects Department at the Hellenic Olympic Committee. She has over 20 years of experience in project management and worked for 6 years for a humanitarian NGO with focus on the refugee population as an institutional fundraiser, and was there also involved in different projects for providing refugees with accommodation, employability, education, and psychological support. So, Georgia, I give it over to you, and looking forward to your presentation.
Hello, greetings from Athens in the Hellenic Olympic Committee. Thank you very much, Denise. Thank you very much, TAFISA. I'm very pleased and honored to participate in the workshop and demonstrate through our work that indeed sport can be a very successful tool for integration. helping to build greater social cohesion. Social cohesion is the glue, can be considered the glue that holds societies together. Towards this direction, the European Commission, for 5 consecutive years, till 2021, launched a call for proposals entitled Sport as a Tool for Integration and Social Inclusion of Refugees, in which the HOC participated. The Hellenic Olympic Committee successfully implemented 2 EU-funded projects, which were completed end of 2022, beginning of 2023, Kids Love Sports and Together in Sport, phase 1. Together in Sport 1 led to Together in Sport phase 2, which started very recently, only this September, together with DOSB, and under the coordination of a well-known Greek NGO named Metadrasi, with a specialization on child protection. Phase 2 is currently funded by BAM, which is the German Federal Office for Migration and Refugees, whereas at the same time, we have applied to AMI, for Asylum Migration Integration Fund of the European Union, for extra funding, and currently the project application is under evaluation. My dear colleague from DOSB will present you later on Together in Sport phase 2. So a few words about Kids Love Sports, which its aim, the aim of the project was to give the opportunity to 4,000 refugee children residing in refugee facilities around Attica to visit the historical Papathanasiou Stadium, participated in a guided tour, and practiced different sports under the guidance of distinguished athletes and the support of numerous volunteers and interns. It is very important to note that without any hesitation, we received from the European Union the consent to include local children in these activities with the aim of better promoting social inclusion. We can see some figures, some results. Almost 4,500 children participated in the activities in the Papathanasiou Stadium, half of them refugee children. A total of 81 visits from 6 different refugee facilities, many elementary schools and some middle schools. Children practiced 10 different sports. They received gifts. And at the end of the activities, during the award ceremony, they received medals, diplomas, and some snacks and a healthy individual meal. The audio guided tour was provided in 8 different languages spoken by refugees, and the interpretation was also available when necessary. Now we can share with you some nice photos from the audio guided tour of the sport activities in the stadium, like this one where you can see the children with their gifts holding up the diplomas they received. Now let's discuss about the sport activities performed within the refugee facilities, the so-called refugee camps. Around 500 children participated there in sport activities. We aimed at empowering young girls to actively participate in the activities, and I think that we did well. It was something that was largely achieved. We donated through the project sports equipment to the refugee reception facilities at the amount of, almost 36,000. The aim of the donation was to make sure that children can practice sports even after the completion of the project. Some photos taken from the activities in the refugee camps. You can see, from football, boxing, taekwondo event in the Skisto, in Attica area, a theoretical judo course. And I would like to talk to you about the post-project publication, we opted for a children's ebook illustration. The idea was to inspire similar initiatives within the federations, the sporting clubs, the Olympic family in general, as well as society, and change, of course, to the extent which is possible, negative attitudes and prejudices, especially of children, towards the refugee population. The project methodology is presented in a pleasant way, we believe, through an illustrated story in which our protagonist, Inez, a refugee girl, visits the Papathanasiou Stadium together with her peers from the refugee camp she's housed and from the school she attends. This post-project application has an educational aspect by including info, maybe you can see some of them, regarding the Olympism, Olympic values. So I think it's nice. After you can see after the children arrived in the stadium, they participated in the guided tour, during which they learned about the history of the stadium, the values of Olympism. And right afterwards, they entered the stadium, the field, and they practiced different sports, including athletics, judo, football, taekwondo, etc. After the end of the sport activities, as I said before, there was also an award ceremony during which children received a medal, a diploma for their participation, as well as a nice gift bag. And before they left the stadium, each child received a nutritious lunchbox. They look very happy, our protagonist and the peers. In order to monitor the project implementation, we established a feedback mechanism by collecting, receiving anonymous feedback from all stakeholders, including interns, volunteers, children, and school staff. You can see some examples of the feedback collected. What you are currently seeing is the visitors' book we handed to children so that they could write their thoughts concerning the visit as well. I would very much like to share with you a very touching message that a little girl called Zohre wrote on the visitors' book. I give you some few seconds so that you can read. Honestly, every time I read this message, I get a feeling of accomplishment. And I feel that we indeed managed to benefit this, of course, both local and refugee children, but mainly refugee children who have suffered a lot in their origin countries during the journey and upon their arrival. Some more. Then we pass on the statistics. I presented some of them earlier. And yes, now, after each visit at the Papathanasiou Stadium, we handed to the children cans on papers, markers, and they created the drawings that you are currently seeing. I think that they look very nice. And okay, we finish with some more photos. And I hope you liked this attempt to increase visibility and to, yes, trying to promote social inclusion and peaceful coexistence. Now, I think it's time to talk a little bit about Together in Sport Phase 1. I presented earlier our donors and partners. The aim of Together in Sport was again to strengthen social cohesion between underage unaccompanied and non-unaccompanied asylum seekers and locals in the host societies through joint participation in both sporting and recreational activities. Some figures: over 9,000 children, both local and refugees, benefited. We had presence in 6 different locations throughout Greece, including Lesbos Island. Overall, 91 one-off sport events were performed, 21 different sports, involvement of 120 volunteers, and donation of sports equipment to cooperating schools, municipalities, sports clubs, valued at, almost 29,000 euro. You can see some more photos from one-off events, which were conducted in different locations, including Ioannina, Kavala. Here it's a very nice photo from a sport event in the renovated through the project basketball court in Kavala. Judo in Athens, athletics, more activities, including handball in another city of Greece, Drama. Swimming, it was a theoretical course provided by our Olympian Spiros Yaniotis. Again, basketball in Kavala. Cycling in Ioannina. Taekwondo in Piraeus. And I think, yes, there are some more. A picture taken during a visit to the Olympic Museum in Athens. And yes, wrestling match in Athens as well. Of course, many partnerships have been created through both projects, with the most important one, the partnership with the Hellenic Ministry of Migration and Asylum, which greatly supported both projects. We signed a memorandum of cooperation with municipalities. We cooperated very closely with the Supreme Military Sports Council of the Hellenic Armed Forces, with the International Organization of Migration and other NGOs, which very much facilitated our work within the refugee reception facilities. We received great support from the Hellenic Olympic Academy, from different sports clubs, private ones, and faculties of sports sciences and physical education from Greece and abroad. However, we faced a lot of challenges, with major one, the COVID-19, and many others, like the shutdown of refugee reception facilities. During project implementation, 3 refugee facilities were shut down very suddenly, so we had to cancel everything, and it was such a pity. Yes, in some cases, in some locations of Greece, it was difficult to identify volunteers, or it's true that in some locations, the negative narrative about refugees did not help a lot. And we faced a lot of dropouts. We had to deal with many dropouts and absences of refugee children because of family reunification, reallocation to other European countries, or mental health issues of their families. We did our best in order to raise awareness on the importance of the refugees' inclusion. And as I mentioned before, we aimed to inspire similar initiatives within the Olympic family. You can see some more numbers here about our publications. Both projects were featured by the Olympic Highlights newsletter of the IOC, which was, I think, a good achievement. And this is the last slide of my presentation. The HOC is committed to keep trying to include in the local society and facilitate social cohesion through sport. This is a photo taken back in July. It's a photo from the award ceremony after sports activities performed in a refugee camp close to Attica. And through Together in Sport Phase 1, we purchased a bus. We call it Playmobil bus, equipped with sport items, sport equipment, so that we can keep conducting sports activities in the future. That's all from our side. I thank you very, very much for your attention and commitment.
Thank you very much, Georgia, for this presentation. And as you have seen in the chat, the children's books, a lot of people found it very beautiful, the output which you have shown. I agree with that. It's very interesting to see, and I will definitely have to have a more detailed look into that later on as well. Now I would like to announce our second panelist, who is Tobias Antoni, who works for the German Olympic Sport Confederation in the Department of International Affairs as a project manager. There, his main responsibilities are related to sport for development, international sports promotion. Tobias, I will give it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. Thank you to Jean-François and the whole TAFISA team for giving us the platform here today to present our projects. And I also want to thank Georgia for presenting the first phase of our collaborative project Together in Sports 1. And because I just saw this question here of Mark Lewis in regards of the impact of these projects, and I can definitely say that there was an impact, of course, like in regards to social cohesion. There were also external evaluations that proved that this project had a positive impact on the beneficiaries. But I think just out of time reasons, we were not able to deep dive into the impact of this project. Yes, also, I just wanted to briefly thank the team of the Olympic Refugee Foundation, Kathleen, for your continued guidance in the process of drafting the guidance and the template for submitting the sport pledge. I think it's super important for us, like working in the field of sports, to deliver this sport pledge, because often we tend to be a bit business blind, because I believe that everyone here in this room knows about the power of sport and the impact it can have on the children and the youth in regards to integration, inclusion, gender equality. But when sitting at the Global Refugee Forum, you have so many stakeholders, and again, it's absolutely crucial that the sport world commits to the pledge and commits to certain objectives. Yes, so now I want to present some of our work that we are implementing within the DOSB. But before that, let me just give you a bit of a background information about the situation in Germany. And I've presented here a few facts and figures. So we had a major refugee flow back in 2015, 2016. And that was the refugee flow from Syria. And then the second, so to say, major refugee flow from Ukraine in 2022, 2023. And of course, this creates some challenges also for the sporting system, because first of all, like a lot of school gyms were being used as refugee accommodations, and therefore no training could take place in those gyms anymore. But luckily, this situation has been changed, and there's now more housing available that is being provided for the refugees. But also the second question that arises through the challenges or the refugee flow is how to integrate thousands of people and a lot of athletes on the professional level into the sporting system in Germany. And we work on a national level, on the grassroots level. And I would like to present a few projects, or one major project that allows the integration of refugee athletes into clubs and federations, and to give them an opportunity to also continue their sport on a professional level. So this project has actually been ongoing for about 30 years. It's called Integration durch Sport, or in English it's called Integration Through Sports. And in total, more than 10,000 clubs have been benefiting from this program. And just to give you another background figure, in total we are having an estimated number of 87,000 sport clubs in Germany. And the key models of this training is like coach education, fit for diversity. Of course, we also try to sensitize coaches that diversity is a strength also for a club. It allows the club to integrate different cultures, and this allows especially the young generation to be educated in a world that is becoming more and more global. Other modules that are included in this program are language skills, financial help for the clubs, and also advice and mentoring. These are some of the indicators here of the project. So the project indicators for 2022 in regards to the supported clubs were 1,300, and the next year, or this year, we are estimating 1,400, but the actual realization numbers are they are higher. And also now, building the bridge to the sport pledge, we try to use our indicators from these projects that are presented on a national but also international level as baseline indicators that we are including in our sport pledge. So you might remember the 5 areas where we can commit to, and the supported clubs, or the participation numbers of people with and without refugee background that are included in these projects. They can again then transfer to our pledge commitment. Right, I'm rushing through this a little bit because I want to specifically also talk about phase 2 of our collaborative project with the Hellenic Olympic Committee. But this one is another project example of a collaboration in Turkey, which we conducted from 2016 to 2019, social cohesion through sports between Syrian refugees and Turkish host communities in the Turkish-Syrian border region. Some of the measures are presented here, like the education of 500 instructors. And I also believe that this is crucial, because I think Kathleen mentioned the Global Compact, that it also actively contributes, that refugees actively contribute as members to the society. And this is something we also try to have in our second phase of the project Together in Sport 2, which is presented on this slide here. We are doing capacity development of at least 24 coaches, and we also want to include especially coaches with refugee background. We want to try to identify them, certify them as coaches, and then empower them to be coaches in our project as well. And therefore they can actually be role models also for the youth in their respective context. They can also bring some new input, some new sports into the project, more traditional sports from their home countries. For example, they've been a coach in Ghana or Afghanistan, and it's just a very different sport, or another traditional sport compared to something which we engage here in Greece now. And so again, like, we are trying to see diversity as a strength and include them and give them a voice, give them leadership. I think these are all aspects that are crucial to empower them in the long run. So yes, the duration has been mentioned already. We are looking at a project duration of 3 years now. And we are trying to achieve or target 10,000 beneficiaries in different sports, but also leisure activities. And we also aim to include people with disabilities, with physical and intellectual disabilities, and therefore partner also with other organizations that have expertise in these contexts, such as the Paralympic Committee, Special Olympics, and opening this project to even more people in Greece. Because, and I think this has been mentioned as well, sport is just such a cross-cutting tool, and can not only be used for integration of people with refugee background, but it also allows us to give a platform for people with physical and intellectual disabilities to develop self-esteem through sports, but also for those people without disabilities, allows them to develop tolerance to the other people. And yes, we are very much looking forward for this new phase, and we are also using our indicators or project objectives here to develop our commitment pledge together with the Hellenic Olympic Committee. We are still in the process also to see whether we can include other project partners, such as the German Federal Office for Migration and Refugees, who are the co-funding partner at the moment, or even the European Asylum, Migration and Integration Fund, where we applied for the remaining co-funding to be part of this sport pledge, because you remember the 5th area of commitment, which is about strengthening partnerships. And we strongly believe that this would be a great sign that if we can bring all the partners together and pledge together. But from our side, we use our communication channels to raise awareness about this project, about the positive impacts, yes, what the beneficiaries have achieved. We also promote inclusive, safe sport and play-based initiatives through this project, through events, but also through general sport activities. And we also support like clubs and federations in Greece then to continue their integration through sport movement. Right. Apart from that, the DOSB supports the Refugee Olympic Committee, Olympic team, sorry. And in 2023, we are having the largest number of all NOCs that hand distribute the scholarships in partnership with the IOC. At the moment, we are having a total of 11 scholarships holders. And we are looking forward to see some of them in Paris next year. So yes, these are just a few more pictures of the current scholarship holders. And I think that's it. And yeah, thank you once again for your attention. And if you have any questions, feel free to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tobias, for this very insightful presentation and for the interesting different project which we presented. We have already received some questions for you, which we will tackle later on in our question and answer session. For now, I would like to present our next speaker, who is Meaux. She is a social intervention manager with Play International, which is a sport development NGO based in France with activities in different countries in Africa and Europe, and initially was an educator for children with disabilities and their families, and also managed a center for asylum seekers and refugees in France. And let me pass it over to you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and thank you, TAFISA, for your invitation. And I'm really glad to be with all of you. Just before sharing my presentation, is it possible to share Play's video? Perfect.
Adults say peace is impossible.
They say girls can't do that.
Neighbors are not like us. We're not allowed to play with them. They say don't talk to him. He's different. They say
no more play now.
Children may have lost their carefree spirit, but there is something that they will always have, something that makes our mankind: the desire to play. At Play International, we've been doing this for over the past 20 years, using sports games as an educational tool for children and young people in vulnerable situations, learning through playing sports to unleash the potential of each individual, to have a positive impact on each one's life path, and to give the keys to build a more inclusive, fairer, and more sustainable future. The future is being played out together with teachers and educators. It's being played out here. It's being played out for everyone. It's being played with you.
Thank you very much for this sharing. And now, so I think you can now see my screen. Thank you. So, taking a bit time to come, but normally it's gonna be in presentation mode. So normally now it's all good. So hello everyone. So you just saw a bit of a video of Play International, which is a French NGO. We exist since more than 24 years now, and we use sport as a tool for education, for inclusion in different countries. So what are our main objectives? It's foster the inclusion of the most vulnerable children. So we really, it can be about disabilities, about refugee children. We really think that sport and games, play-based activities can help for the inclusion and also promote and facilitate the access to sport. It's important also for us to raise awareness for all of the children that we can work with, and also prove the impact of our actions and of mainly sports in the development of the children. So since more than 20 years now, we had more than 20 countries of interventions. Now we are in France, Kosovo, Senegal, Liberia, Burundi, and Comoros. I'm not going to explain all of the dates with you today, but it's just to show you a bit of history of Play International. So at the very beginning, we were more in a post-crisis mode. That means that we came in country after a crisis, for example, in Sri Lanka after the tsunami and the flood, and we give to the kids some games, some play-based activity for them to take pleasure, to laugh and to be together. And then during the around 2010, we decided to change our mindset and to be more a development NGO. So we are really focused on the training and the capacity building of the field workers. And that is what I'm gonna talk about today. So we really think that's something that helps with sustainability. So for each of our countries that you saw just before, we always have staff who are working with the field workers to help them to build the capacity of facilitating sport activities, for example. So what are we doing in each of these countries? It's pedagogical content creation, of course, always developing new educational tools, because we really want the tools that we develop to meet the needs of the local population and the kids on the field. So, of course, those needs are always evolving. That's why we have content always evolving. When I speak about content, it's mostly about games, 1 hour game, for example, and we have different parts of the game for them to become really educational ones. Of course, we have also the objective of our impact. So we are doing project development, and we also want to work with local associations and organization to have something sustainable. And advocacy, we want to continue to show the world and the decision maker that sports have a potential and sport is a powerful tool for inclusion and education. About inclusion of refugees through sport, because that's why we are here today. We also had a few programs and projects about it. We began on this topic since 2017 with an incubator. We had 7 European associations that we helped to develop their activity and to open their activity to refugees and asylum seekers, children or teenagers. So we had an accompaniment remotely and also on site with some events. So after that, we thought it could be great, but most of the association wanted also to have tools. That's why we continued with a program of inclusion for refugees and asylum seekers. So this program was supported by the Europa, and we create 15 sessions for unaccompanied minors, children, and families. And those games, after we created those games after diagnosis, and we created those games to develop some, or to help the development of some psychosocial skills for the kids on the ground. So during the playing and during the game, you are working on your psychosocial skills that will help you in your everyday life. So we train some social workers and coaches in France and Europe. And then we wanted to go further again. That's why we continue with Terrain d'Avenir, supported with the support of the ORF, Olympic Refugees Foundation, to continue the training and accompaniment of the social workers, but also to go deeper in this accompaniment, because we saw that sometimes it can be hard to directly do some games on the field after 1 day or 2 day trainings. So we wanted to go on the field with them to really help them to be able to facilitate those games. And also we had a different partnership. We had this project with a consortium. So we wanted to have the best offer of access to sport in Paris as possible. And finally, the last one is the one Together Through Sport, which is about the teachers, because we really focused on social workers, on coaches, but finally teachers, and even more in Poland and Romania, they were not used to have a lot of refugees in their classes, and then the Ukrainian crisis happened. So it was really difficult for them, and they had really a lack of tools and really needed some educational or some inclusion games. So that's why we first went once for a short program, and we wanted to continue with our partner. So that's why we are now this new project. So during all of this history presentation, I talked about capacity building a lot because it's really what we do and how we want to build the society within play, because we really think it is with the capacity building and the training that we can have sustainable programs and projects, and that the professionals now that we have been training, the professional who came to our trainings can do after the games and have this mindset for all of their careers. So we really think it's something that can help and can be really meaningful for all of the ecosystem of the professional, not only himself, but also, for example, for the social worker, the center and asylum management, and really have an impact on the ecosystem at itself. So this is a few reasons about capacity building, why, who, how. So why I told you, so it's giving some tools for the professionals. Who it's really large. As you see, it can be coaches, it can be social workers. We really want our approach to be as holistic as possible, because that is what will help the kids to have access to sport activities, because sometimes some cannot come to a sport club, but they are going to school, or for others it's opposite. So we really want to raise awareness among a lot of different professionals. And how, by adapting the approach, I think this is something really important, because the training will not be the same with social worker, for example, or and for coaches. Social workers are not used to do sport activities, to facilitate this kind of activities, but the discussion that we have at the end of our games, they are really used to have discussions with youngs and a group of persons. And for coaches, it's opposite. For them, facilitating a sport game is easy, but after making links between what happened on the field and the psychosocial skills can be a bit more difficult. So the adaptation is really the key here, and we really think it can be really rich for every professionals. That's all for me. I didn't talk that much about the advocacy and all of the networking that we are involved in, but I don't have 30 minutes in front of me. But we are really convinced by what is the Sport for Refugees Coalition doing, and the sport pledge. We are involved in the construction of the sport pledge since the beginning, and we are really happy that it can have a real place on the Global Refugees Program, and really think it's important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne, for this great presentation from Play International. It's very interesting to hear about your projects. Now I would like to give it to our last speaker for today. Last but not least, to Gerald Mballe, who is a Special Olympics first ever advisor for the Unified with Refugees program, helping further strengthen and expand the reach and impact of the initiative. So Gerald, I would like to give it over to you, and I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all the colleagues and the presentators. Thank you for the great work you're doing on behalf of the most marginalized ones, the refugees, the displaced ones. And I cannot start without expressing how grateful I am and honored to have a space to speak on this webinar, most especially in this crucial moment where global migration challenges amplify and remains one of the most pressing issues facing humanity. Like we all know that the amount of destruction is immense around some corners in today's ever-changing world. So I'm really thrilled to be here to talk about my experience in this case as someone that once benefited from all the beautiful projects that and initiative that we have been talking about, and also as a young professional that I am today. So I am Gerald Mballe. I am a refugee who fled my homeland as an accompanied minor to escape horrific violence, seeking safety in a foreign land. And my journey and challenges are connected to those of my family. So asylum seekers right now in Cyprus, while our loved ones remains internally displaced in our homeland's turmoil. So talking about how I came across the movement that really transformed everything is like going back to a couple of years ago when I was still in the refugee camp. And like many others, like many other refugee youths, I was scared, very scared and anxious in an unfamiliar and sometimes unwelcome land. And I remember by then I was provided with a guide to help me navigate the city, to adapt to his culture, to the rules, and to learn how to speak the Italian language, since I am based in Italy and precisely now in Milan. And this guide, I remember we had several intense conversations with the guide, and he was very aware of my passion for football. So he invited me to join a local team of Special Olympic athletes. And that was an offer that I immediately and gladly accepted. So arriving at the practice the day after, I was struck by the inclusivity that I saw on the pitch. I mean, like, I had never seen or experienced something like that before in my homeland, because unfortunately, where I come from in my nation, individuals with intellectual disabilities, with intellectual challenges are often marginalized. So, but it was the contrary to my reality. I was totally welcomed with open arms and invited to participate without any prejudice by these inclusions bureaus, as I define them. And this was just a very simple proposition, but with a profound impact that changed everything in my life. So now, going back and giving a little bit of background on the movement, for those who don't know, Special Olympics is the largest global movement dedicated to empowering individuals with intellectual disabilities, individual that has been long-term on the margin. And this platform offers them a consistent opportunity to develop their skills both in and out of the field of play through inclusive sport programming, inclusive development programming. And over the past years, I was fortunate enough to be part of this movement. And my journey within this movement has enriched me in several meaningful ways. I mean, like most specifically working with the athletes of Special Olympics and playing unified sport, playing as a unified partner, open my understanding on diverse human experience, fostering a sort of great sense of empathy and inclusivity towards my interaction with others. And just watching these athletes perform with determination and resilience inspire me to conquer my personal challenges. I mean, like, inspired me to go out of my comfort zone and pursue my goals with a type of renewed enthusiasm, no? Like, especially coming from a nation where people with intellectual disability do not have a word to say, where they are still excluded. but their support, their friendship and sportsmanship transformed my life. And I became part of a supportive community. I mean, like a community that knows what values mean, community that knows what the value of teamwork means, knows what it means to create human connection. So what I'm trying to say here is that my involvement has empowered me to become an advocate for inclusion and equal opportunities as well, like driving me to take more active role in promoting positive change, positive social change through sport. Like being unified with these remarkable athletes profoundly shaped me into a more compassionate and proactive individual. So like, I want to take this space to really express how grateful I am for the lessons and the connection that I've gained on this incredible journey. And today, I have transformed from a desperate asylum seeker to the first ever advisor of the Special Olympics Unified with Refugee program. So isn't this wonderful? I mean, like, this is really wonderful. It is. I mean, like, when I look at my trajectory, I look at all the challenges, I look at the passion that came through, I look at the enthusiasm, I look at like how I was like transmitted with this spirit of inclusion revolution. I really believe it's wonderful. So like, now going specifically into details about the Special Olympics Unified Refugee program, I would like to say it is a program, it is an inclusive sport platform, like witnessing the athlete of Special Olympics reaching out in friendship to another marginalized demographic, bringing together individuals with intellectual disabilities and as well refugee youths of all abilities to train and play as one. Like Special Olympics through this Unified Refugee program has taken an active position in engaging refugee youths of all abilities, both with and without intellectual disabilities, to join and play as one into the field. And this is a platform that has been successfully offering inclusive programming, inclusive sport programming to people, to the most marginalized ones of our community. And they have been offering programming like unified sports that unite, as I earlier said, these two demographics, early child development initiatives, and wellness education, such as family forum to engage families of refugees with intellectual disabilities into family health education seminar designed to increase the healthcare and the health services to empower vulnerable communities. And this is a program that is like currently serving about 15 nations across Africa, Europe, and Asia. So now taking the focus on another dimension, I just want to let you know that programs like your programs, like all the initiatives we do, like what accumulate all of us here is the inclusion of the most marginalized one. So like now, how someone like me, for example, refugee from Cameroon in my case, can make a meaningful contribution to programs like Special Olympics Unified Refugee or many other programs out there. In my current role now, I serve as a keynote speaker, panelist, and public representative for the Special Olympics Unified Refugee Program. I collaborate to expand the reach of Unified Refugee Program within Special Olympics regional and national program. And I also serve as the special envoy for Special Olympics and UNHCR Global Partnership. I do support fundraising and resources mobilization for Special Olympics Europe, Asia, and Special Olympics with in-person presentations, and also amplify the voice of refugees and migrant youths in the Unified Refugee Program through our communication on our social media with Special Olympics Europe, Asia, and partners. And this is just like how someone like me that have been at the other side can benefit from a project or inclusion initiative that are sustainable, that are well done, and that gives anyone a space. So I'm going to conclude by saying sport, as we all know here, can play a very important and vital role in social development, inclusion, cohesion, and well-being, particularly for refugees, children, and youth and young adults all over the world, even those with intellectual disabilities. It can help in so many ways. I'm not here to state here because I'm not here to state them because we have professionals on this call working in this domain. There are millions of refugees out there, great professionals, but I've realized that a lot of them are still drowning in their desperation, even though they are eager to have the same experience and transformation that I had. But however, unless we actively involve them in our initiative, allowing them to lead and shape inclusion-related matters, allowing them to take responsibility, allowing them to coordinate, to be at the first place, just like allowing them by giving them assistance to evaluate and to also provide some report. This is the only way and the best way in which we could have concrete and effective initiative. Why am I saying this? It's because I've realized during the few years of experience that I have in the field that there are some gentlemen, some individuals that really easily mix up things and sometimes forget that they are not refugees themselves. But sometimes that is just led by too much passion and the belief that they are the owners of the project, but that is not it. So thank you very much. And I'm going to leave you with a piece of video that I would kindly ask for you to play, for you to understand what I'm talking about. Then I will drop on a link on the chat for you to know more about our project. Thank you.
Unificados con refugiados.
Thank you, Gerald, for your very inspiring story, and thank you for sharing it with us and with everyone. I would suggest that as we have several questions which came in, that we can now start with our question and answer session. So to all participants, please feel free to post your questions in the question and answer section, and we will try to come to all of them, hoping that we have the time for it. I would maybe start with a question for you, Kathleen, which is a question on how an organization can become part of the Refugee Foundation and how they can participate in the think tank.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, so the foundation, as I said, was established by the IOC, and we work with a number of external networks. So that would be the easiest way to begin partnering with us. The Olympic Refuge Foundation think tank, to which the question referred, is one of the networks that we have convened. So a group of independent experts that we brought together who work very much on the intersection of sport, displacement, and mental health and psychosocial support. Membership of the think tank is by invite and based on the skills, experience, including professional experience, but also lived experience of the individual. So it's an individual membership rather than an organisational membership. But certainly anyone who is interested in that, they can get in touch with the Olympic Refuge Foundation and we can talk more about that. Thinking about what we're talking about today and where we're really looking to expand our partnerships and our networks, that's as part of the Sport for Refugees Coalition. So said the coalition currently is a broad group, 80 plus members. The only requirement to be a part of the coalition is to make a commitment towards the joint pledge. So anyone on the call whose organisation is able to make a commitment towards the pledge that we presented today, be that commitment big or small, be it policy, programme, technical, financial, in kind, we're here and ready to support you in the process of developing and submitting that commitment, and we would love to welcome you as partners within the Sport for Refugees Coalition.
Thank you, Kathleen, and I hope that some of the organizations present here today will reach out to the coalition to you later on. Maybe to another question for Tobias and Georgia. I saw that you already answered in written a little bit, but maybe you could just explain a little bit about the impact of your project which you had presented. I think there are several people on this call who would be very interested in hearing a little bit more about it.
Should I start? I'm starting with a question regarding the Turkish project. You are asking for like long-term impact, and so unfortunately I was not with the DOSB when the project was conducted, but based on the documents or on the evaluation report, I can say that participants of the workshop, for instance, had developed capacities when it comes to involving people with different intercultural backgrounds, the organization of tournaments and handling of challenges in regards to sport for and with refugees. But there was no, like, let's say, follow-up evaluation done with the coaches, but this is what was at least to be found out in regards to the positive development of the coaching competencies, also other positive tendencies in regards to environmental education, conflict management, conduction of educational games was found among the participants. But if you have like further questions, I can also share the evaluation report with you, and I've shared my email address here in the chat. In regards to the evaluation of our project Together in Sports, I would have to say that HOC and DOSB are not the ones responsible for the implementation of the evaluation, the MNE, but it's the partner organization Metadrasi. Georgia, correct me if I'm mistaken. So I'm not sure like we can deep dive into the impact results, but I would like to hand over to Georgia for that. You are still muted.
Yes, sorry. Yes, Toby, you are correct. It's correct what you said. evaluation fall under the responsibility of the project coordinator. Metadresi, however, we do know, I went through the document about the evaluation study, that it was conducted by an external evaluator, which is called Higgs. And impact, as I have already written down, was assessed by conducting interviews with all stakeholders, anonymous interviews with all stakeholders, including representatives from municipalities, for the Ministry of Migration, for sport clubs, all volunteer coaches, interns, the staff of HOC, DOSB. We have already all been interviewed. Regarding Kids Love Sports, which is a smaller project, although we don't have an M&E unit at the HOC, it happens that I have some experience in M&E. So we prepared and used anonymous, again, online questionnaires addressed to stakeholders. And we used the Kobo tool. It's a tool used by humanitarian NGOs to conduct anonymous questionnaires. Again, we are not going to change the world, but we can contribute to the extent which is possible and do our best to support refugees through our projects. Last comment is that we have written down and tracked both quantitative and qualitative results. And I'm happy to send to Mark any additional information about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia and Tobias. And since you already shared your contact details, I'm sure that you will have a good follow-up. Kathleen, I would now like to hand the same question also over to you, as you're also working with measurement and evaluation. We're also looking forward to your opinion on it.
Thank you very much. And I think it's an important question. In terms of the evidence base that is available, at the individual level, the evidence is available and is very strong in terms of the impact of such programs and initiatives in sports, socio-emotional learning and skills, life skills, mental health, psychosocial support outcomes. Within the Olympic Refuge Foundation, we're currently finalising a randomised control trial from one of our programmes in Uganda, which is showing incredibly positive results that will be published in due course. We're just finalising the report itself just now, but the data has all been analysed and is very positive. In relation to Mark's question, when you go to that higher level, the impacts beyond the individual themselves, so in terms of social inclusion and social cohesion, it's true that the evidence base is more limited. That doesn't mean to say that it's not there and that there's not examples, but it's also quite a challenging thing to study and to study well. Again, within the Olympic Refuge Foundation, we have an evaluation strategy. We don't evaluate everything. We evaluate where the evidence base is weak, where there's a strategic imperative, where there's a new implementation model. It's not always impact evaluations either. We also have performance evaluations ongoing, we have process evaluations. So it depends on the context and what we're trying to address. But one of the key challenges, from a personal perspective, is that much of the activity we see in relation to sport and displacement context is small scale. It can be quite ad hoc. It's often not coordinated. Within our programme and within the Olympic Refuge Foundation, I have some parameters that we put around evaluations, and one of those is a general sense that approximately 3 to 5% of the programme budget is what's ring-fenced for evaluation. If you've got 3 to 5% of a budget that's €20,000, you're not going to get very far in terms of producing robust evidence. But if we can come together and coordinate better and pool our resources, we could start to think about how we look at this more strategically, how we produce better, higher quality evidence. And that's certainly one of my hopes for the Sport Coalition and the pledge. And it's why on that pillar 4, evidence exists there. So it's recognised among the reference group that evidence is important in terms of thinking about the more systematic uptake of sport within displacement contexts. And then the hope within the pledge is that we can think about how we do that better together, how we can pool those resources, how we can coordinate, how we can produce, communicate, disseminate, and advocate using that evidence.
Thank you, Kathleen, for that all-overpassing answer to this question of impact and evaluation of the programs. Just to also give a chance for Anne to answer to that question, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about also the impact of one of the projects from Play International.
Yeah, sure. So we have different level of impact and impact evaluation. So when we think about a project, we want to evaluate the impact for the child and how what we are bringing to them is helping them or not. But it is really difficult because we are one part of the solution and it's really a multi-actor activity. So it's difficult to say, okay, it's the sport activities more than another activities from another NGO, for example, who helped him or her to, I don't know, develop itself, or I don't know. So this is a difficulty. So we have some tools and we have some questionnaires that we ask for the kids. It is easiest when we are working on a subject. For example, if I am working about gender equality, we have games really focused on it, and we can really evaluate the before-after. So we have pre and post tests. So it's like easy, really easy questionnaire for kids to have time and have the patience to do, and they do it before. After they do the games during 1, 2, 3 weeks, and they do it after, and then we can see if they had an evolution of how they see gender equality. And so this is just an example, but you can see what I mean. We also work with some universities, and we have 2 PhD students within Play who worked on the impact evaluation with scientific tools. Sorry. So thanks to them, we have more and more really deep tools and also results that we will soon be able to look at and to analyze and to use for our next project. So this is the first level about the child, and after you also have the impact with the trainers, the trainers, the coaches, the teachers, the social workers, every person that you might train. So for them, it's a bit easier because you can come with them on the field. Of course, you can do tests and questionnaire to see how the evolution of the thematic in their mind and everything. But you can also come in the field with them and see how they interact with kids, how they facilitate a game, and are they inclusive? Have they some positive sentence or most negative sentence when they speak to a child? So this kind of impact is more easy to evaluate because we are more close finally to the one we are training than to the kids.
Thank you, Anne. That's very interesting also to hear from Play International. Maybe just to give it back to you, Kathleen, we have a question from Elena Marin from the Sport for Good Foundation, and she is asking when you collect the evidence on the process, so what kind of evidence are you looking for? Do you have any specific guidelines of type of indicators, of outputs, of impact, and so that all of the organization shares the impact coherently?
And just to confirm, this was related to the pledge and monitoring progress to implement pledge. Yes. Yep. Okay. So the systems that are being set up around the joint sport pledge, so the monitoring implementation progress, will focus on input and output level primarily. So to demonstrate what we as a sector have been able to mobilise and bring to the refugee response. And also who we are reaching, the diversity of who we're reaching, and the focus of that activity. I mean, that's a pragmatic solution, I guess, that's been put in place, given what we saw the first time around with the Sport Coalition, with a large number of partners involved, and what we hope will also be the case in 2023. We want to bring on as many partners as possible, and we recognise that those partners are all going to be in different locations, doing different types of activities, working with different types of people in very different contexts and trying to achieve very different things. They will also all have very different capacity in terms of what they are able to do in going further in monitoring outcomes or impact. So the basics of the monitoring will focus on impact and output level. For those with the capacity and resource to go further, outcome monitoring will be encouraged, and we have developed a set of indicators which could support that, drawing quite heavily on the existing sport and SDG indicators. And going forward, what we're proposing is some guidelines around outcome monitoring with suggestion of tools that can be used. Again, we know this is one of the issues with large monitoring systems. They're only as good as the quality of data that is going into them, and the quality of data is going to vary considerably if we have, as Anne mentioned, validated, tested tools versus tools that have been developed by an individual organisation. We can't meaningfully start to aggregate and use that. So what we're proposing is guidelines around the collection of outcome, potentially impact level data, suggestion of tools that could be used in different contexts, again, support that can be there from the co-conveners, and also that pillar 4 within the component, the hope that evidence can be embedded. So we're starting to engage, say, with some academic networks. Is there a potential for them to make a pledge in support of that could look specifically at work of other coalition members or at the issue more broadly? But happy to have a more in-depth discussion with anyone who's interested or wants to know more, and all of this documentation can be shared.
Great, thank you for that. I do directly have another question for you, Kathleen, which is coming from Ireland. We have in the chat from Graham Clifford. He asked, or he wrote that from his experience from working with 15,000 people in Ireland over the last 5 years, they found out that the first priority needs to be community integration. Everything else, including health and social benefits, flow from that. So Graham is asking if the pledge, since the pledge is very broad, if it's not risking to if the broadness of it might not create a problem.
Yeah, and again, thank you for the question. And this again has been a balance that we're trying to achieve. So to keep the pledge broad enough that it's meaningful across the sport ecosystem, across different contexts, across the diversity of organisations and individuals that we hope may be able to make a commitment, that it addresses all of the components that we think are necessary in order to create the sort of systems level sustainable change that we want to see in terms of the value and contribution of sport to displacement responses being maximised. And that's where the individual commitment from each organisation comes in, because that's where, so these pillars are broad buckets, if you like, where each of these individual commitments can sit. And those individual commitments is where we can be much more specific. And the hope is that those individual commitments will be tangible, will be measurable, will be additional, and very importantly, they will be needs-based. So for the participant and that particular question, if the needs assessment within the context shows that this is the element that's very key to address, and obviously we all believe in the power of sport to support that process of inclusion within a new community, then that's where that individual commitment should focus.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer concerning that, Kathleen. I have one question where I'm just thinking who to put it out for mostly here. Maybe I can give it to either one of the National Olympic Committees, so either DOSB or Hellenic Olympic Committee, or maybe Play International, who work with different programs, because it's a question about the impact of by different sports. If, for example, having the impact of climbing to build up trust, or having boxing or something like that for your personal strengths, if it has different impacts, and if it would be beneficial to have studies to focus on which sport would help most refugees or would be most beneficial for refugees, or if in general it is sports which are beneficial and not one or two, several specific sports. So maybe I can ask from the experience, maybe first from Tobias, from the DOSB, what you have with your programs, if you see that it's more some specific sports which are used, or if there's sports in general.
Yeah, thank you, Denise. And I'm happy to share my thoughts on that. And yes, it's thoughts, it's not validated with an evaluation, but personally, I would say that it would be sports that, let's say, the refugees from the context are kind of familiar with. I would not necessarily use a sport such as ice skating for refugees from Ghana, because like, what kind of picture does that portray? We don't always want to present the picture or the picture of a needy refugee, but we rather want to try and change that narrative by using sport and giving them the platform to showcase what they are able of, right? And again, like picking up maybe the sport, the country Ghana, which I know they have a great background and passion about boxing. So that's probably a sport that could be used with refugees from Ghana. But likewise, and I think I've mentioned that in my presentation, it's interesting also for people from the host communities to maybe learn about a new sport, a traditional sport from a country from the various refugees. But again, I think like you can't generalize in total. But I would also add on that probably team sports are more suitable than individual sports, because it just allows you to also develop other values and competencies such as team play and so on. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tobias. I don't know if Georgia or Anne, you would like to add to that?
Maybe I would add that we also ask for children's feedback. We propose a certain number of sports, and we ask, we explain new sports to children. They can try, but we always ask for their feedback before deciding with which sport to proceed. Feedback is very important to us.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And about the which sport. Within play, we are most creating games than using specific sports, but we are really careful to use inclusive games or sport or movement kind of. For example, we know there is gender issues about football. A lot of young girls are not allowed kind of to play football with some boys sometimes. So if we were only using football as a sport for kids, then we would exclude kind of the young girls. So it is something important to have in mind, but we are trying to use every kind of sport, movement, play-based activities.
Great, thank you very much, Anne. Kathleen, do you have from the Olympic Refugee Foundation anything to add about the pledge and their sports which you're using?
So the pledge is very diverse. I also saw a question there asking if non-Olympic sport federations can make a commitment, and the answer, absolutely. So all sports, movement, play-based activities, physical activity, yeah, everyone. The pledge is open and available for everyone, and there's a huge diversity which is already happening. Within the Olympic Refuge Foundation, I guess our approach is that it's not so much the sport itself that matters, it's about how it's delivered. So those opportunities for social connection, to create structure and routine, and to the evidence base that we know around the value of physical activity and movement itself in supporting physical and mental health, positive physical and mental health outcomes. It's a key thing is it's the sport or physical activity that the individual enjoys. So through the coalition, that's what we're trying to ensure. We want to ensure that there's that diversity and that choice for everyone to participate in what works for them.
Okay, thank you very much, Kathleen. And also I would like to thank again all of our speakers that we had today about showing what your organization is doing, or in Gerald's case, showing how sport actually helped you become who you are today. And I think with all of what we heard today, we can just again call for action, call each organization to have a look at the pledge from the Sport Refugee Coalition and to reach out. You have the contact in the chat. We will also share the recording afterwards, and we can just encourage you to take action yourself and to start working to include refugees on all bases and with all means possible. With that, I think we're very good in time. We're even 5 minutes early. And again, I would like to thank everyone. And we are very much looking forward to the development of this whole pledge and of the whole situation. Thank you very much, everyone.